Good morning and welcome to Our Issues Milwaukee. I'm your host, Andrea Williams. Our focus this morning is on the rioting that took place in Milwaukee the weekend of August 13th. It all stemmed from the officer shooting of 23-year-old Sylville Smith. Both Smith and the officer were African American, and the aftermath resulted in several people, including police officers, being injured, dozens of protesters being arrested, several vehicles, including squad cars, were burned, as well as several local businesses, including a gas station, an auto parts store, a beauty supply store, a bank, and several other businesses. Here to talk about those events and where we go from here is Milwaukee Mayor Tom Barrett. Good morning, Mayor.
Good morning. It's great to be on your show.
It's always good to have you here, and I appreciate your time on this. Right off the bat, it's no secret that Milwaukee is known as one of the most segregated cities in America, and a lot of attention was actually brought to that fact when this scenario made national headlines. Many people have connected the riots to a history of segregation and discrimination in the city. What are your thoughts?
Well, first of all, I think if you talk about the city, it's a different situation because our city is very multiracial. Our city is 40% African American, about 37% white, about 17% Hispanic. So the city, there's a lot of diversity in the city itself. What you see, though, in the region is that 72% of southeastern Wisconsin's low-income people live in the city of Milwaukee. And that concentration of poverty is the second highest concentration of poverty in the nation of major metropolitan areas. So what has happened, intentionally or unintentionally, is that the city of Milwaukee is the home to the vast majority of low-income people. And the challenges that come along with low income are being really burdened on the city of Milwaukee, and we're asked to carry a disproportionate amount of that burden when you look at this entire region. And I think that's one of the issues that people need to understand.
And I appreciate you clarifying that from your standpoint. You've served as mayor for 12 years now, and over the past few years, we've seen different scenarios take place in Baltimore, Ferguson, and other parts of the country. Did it ever cross your mind that something like that could very well happen in our city?
It certainly crossed my mind that something like that could happen, but I always hoped that it wouldn't. And when I look back 2 weeks, that's a weekend that I wish had never happened in this city. I think everybody feels that way. But I also think it's important to sort of put things in perspective in that there were about 2 hours there where our police had to regroup. They didn't expect the quick uprising that occurred after the police-involved shooting. And that was a period in which the gas station was set ablaze. And so they had to wait, the firefighters had to wait before they could go in to fight that blaze. Once they got in, there were some other occurrences around the city, but that was the beginning of when things started to get a little better in terms of public safety. The next morning, it was like night and day because I saw hundreds of people from churches, from the community, who were out there saying, this is our neighborhood, and we don't want to see this happen. And I think that that's really, really important for people to recognize. That Sherman Park is an area where there's a lot of really good people, and they don't deserve this. The other thing, and we're going to probably touch on this later, I'm very proud of the fact that our police department really showed professional judgment throughout this ordeal. There were a number of times, many times, dozens of times, when our shot spotter system activated. But unlike disturbances that you have seen around the nation, the Milwaukee Police Department did not fire a single shot throughout this ordeal. And because community police relations are so important, I think that people have to realize that we are trying to do it differently here because I understand how important it is to have this city be a city where people can trust the police department and the police department can trust the citizens.
And you brought out a very important point. The Sherman Park neighborhood has a great group of residents that live there. They have a residents association, and the history behind that neighborhood is pretty rich. I think I just figured out that Herb Cole and the former baseball commissioner grew up in the Sherman Park neighborhood and both attended Washington High School. So that says a lot in itself.
Well, I actually lived there for 11 years.
You did too.
Prior to being married, that's where I lived. And so I know the neighborhood incredibly well. And again, this is what I want people to understand. This is a really good neighborhood, and there are really good people there. And the worst thing that could happen out of this is if people decide they're not going to invest there, they're not going to visit there. And that's why, since this occurred, I've reached out to every single business that was affected and asked them to please reinvest. Because I go back many, many years in this community, and following disturbances in the 1960s, I think one of the biggest mistakes we made was we allowed the disinvestment to occur in the central city. I don't want to see that happen. And I want to see the investment occur right away, and I want to see even more investment. So I'm using this as a clarion call to say, look, we need more jobs in this neighborhood, we need better housing, we need to do more to make it a safe neighborhood, but that's going to take investment, and I'm hoping the whole community steps up.
Yeah, and there are some other communities around the city that need that same sort of attention. So this has almost served as a wake-up call as to what can happen if things get to the point where there's a lack of jobs and people lose hope. Yeah.
And I think that was some of it, but then you had some people who deliberately wanted to break the law. You know, if you go,
They took advantage of the situation.
Took advantage of it, and it's not an accident that several of the businesses hit were liquor stores, and yet people wanted to get liquor. So there was criminal activity that went along with it. There was unrest, but there was criminal activity, and those people should be prosecuted.
Yeah, that always goes with the territory. When
Right.
something like this happens, some people not even from the neighborhood come in
Right.
and take advantage. So that's understood. Now, with this particular situation, the officer involved was described by several residents as an aggressive officer who was not well liked in the community. I'm not sure if that's factual or not, but I think that it's a testament that this issue with the police and community relations goes a lot deeper than race, because a lot of people are saying, well, the cop was black and he was black, so what's the problem? But there is a disconnect when it comes to the badge and some people in the communities that they serve.
Well, I've read hundreds of articles and talked to hundreds of people since this incident occurred, but your statement there, that was the first time that I've heard someone talking about the police officer who was trying to apprehend Mr. Smith in negative terms like that. So I have not heard that before. So I would have to, before I could even respond to that, see whether I could find out whether
and that's why I said I'm not sure if
Yeah.
it's factual, but that has been in articles, and people write what they want.
Right.
So we will definitely make that footnote. But soon after the riot, you did state it, that you wanted the community to know that the young man shot and killed was seen holding a handgun with the police officer's camera. The Attorney General, the State Attorney General, has said that that video is not going to be released to the public until this investigation is complete. So how long do you speculate that it's going to take?
I'm hoping that it will be very, very quick. And I have not seen the video. And that's been a decision that I made, that I felt once that video comes out, I want people to make their own decision. I have seen, though, and you referred to it, a picture that was lifted from that. And in that picture, Mr. Smith was lifting a gun. And what I was told was that he had fallen, and he got up and he picked up the gun and he was lifting the gun. And you could see it because it was a body camera. You could see it from the angle of the police officer looking at him. So that was a picture that I did see.
And I guess for many people, the question is, where do we go from here? Because no one wants to see anything remotely close to what we witnessed happen ever again. So where do we go from here in fixing what we know has played a role in
I think
the
there are several places we go. One,
Okay.
again, I am very interested in improving police-community relations. That's why I feel it's important for people to know how our police responded to this. We deliberately made a decision, we being the police chief and his command staff, not to militarize this operation, that the goal was to bring peace to the community. And that's been what the goal has been, because it's not about who wins or who loses. It's, okay, let's establish peace. And we still have had people who've been on 44th an hour the last few nights. We want to make sure that they're not disturbing the residents who are there. And I understand there's a grieving process in place, but people live there and they have to get up and go to work in the morning. And it may be somebody's mother who can't sleep. So we have to deal with that. Again, I mentioned I want the businesses to reinvest. That's very, very important. But I want to do a lot more than that. And I think that this may have served as a trigger, if you will, but we do need more jobs, and we have over 500 vacant properties in that area, residential and commercial. I've been pushing to get the state, the federal government to help us get the resources so we can put people to work from that neighborhood, either getting these houses back in the condition where they can be sold or torn down if they have to be torn down. And that's, to me, that's real and that's visible, showing that we are committed to creating jobs. We also have the Century City site. I want to get jobs in that location because a lot of this is about the poverty that we have. And I am committed to doing what I can to create jobs so people can support their families.
And that's what it's really all about. That's where it's going to have to start. So I'm eager to see where we can go from here. Your administration is launching a plan in September that will be led by your Office of Violence Prevention. And Reggie Moore has been on this show to talk about his position as director. And this is something you really were working on before
Long before
of the
this,
chaos.
yes,
So tell us a little about that.
Well, I feel very strongly that you have to have a strong police department and you have to have an adequate number of police officers. But that's not the end of the story. There has to also be violence prevention. And that means a lot of creating hope for people, positive programs. I absolutely love the efforts that we're making to put young people to work and people who've been dislocated to work. To me, having a job just goes miles into addressing a lot of the problems we have. And I think we as adults have a moral obligation to create hope and opportunity in the lives of young people. That's why I'm so passionate about my Earn and Learn program. Let's get these kids into jobs. Let's get them working. And let's get the young people working. So that's going to continue to be part of the focus of the Office for Violence Prevention. But it's also connecting with the kids, finding out what we can do to make sure that they're on the right track. And we know that that is something that's important to this city as well.
Yeah, one thing I do want to mention, and I think it's a must that it has to happen. I think that where a lot of frustration has taken place, not just in Milwaukee, but all over the country, is when something does go wrong, they don't always see accountability. And when you continue to see the same pattern, there is still that disconnect that takes place. So has there been any conversation about accountability being something that must be seen by the people?
When you say accountability, you're referring to accountability for
a lot of times you have maybe police officers who have killed unarmed individuals and they're placed on administrative leave with pay, and then they end up getting their job back and there are no charges filed. And to the public who doesn't always understand a process or the details involved, it looks as if they can do what they want to do and they go back to life as usual.
And I'm glad you asked that question because I think there's a national picture, but people have to focus on what's going on here. We obviously 2 years ago had the Dontre Hamilton incident.
I specifically think of that.
And in that situation, Chief Flynn made the decision to terminate the employment of that individual, of the police officer that was involved. So he did lose his job. Now he's able to get disability pay because of state law.
Which is almost the same as his regular paycheck.
But I think it's important for people to understand what's happening here. The police chief made the decision to terminate his employment. I can't control the state. So you have to understand that, and you have to give credit to the chief for doing that. Several years before that, we had a number of police officers that were charged with crimes for violating people's rights. That came about when the police chief did an internal investigation, and he referred the case to the district attorney's office. So there you have two of the most high-profile incidents involving the Milwaukee Police Department that have occurred over the last 5 years. In both cases, the police chief did what I think you wanted him to do, and that is to take decisive action. And I don't think a lot of people realize that.
I agree, and I love most of all Chief Flynn when he was on national television with President Obama's town hall meeting. I love that he showed that he understood both sides of situations that take place, and I think he represented Milwaukee in a very good way. And yes, I did agree with his decision, but I felt like there was this red tape of the Fire and Police Commission, and they almost showed that they were mad at him for doing that. So those are the type of things that I'm hoping we don't have to see the whole political aspect of things and really just let things be the way they should be.
But again, what I would ask you and your viewers to look at is the Fire and Police Commission upheld the chief's decision, supported him in his decision to refer the cases. The state law is where I don't have control. And the state law creates this incentive, if you will. And people have to hold our state accountable for that as well. But I do, and I am committed to having better police-community relations. And I think people have to look at what actions were taken here locally. And I think most people would say that those have been responsible actions that have been geared toward having this be a city where people can work with and respect the police, and where the police can work with and respect the people. It has to be a two-way street. It's like a marriage or a long-term relationship. We're in this together.
Absolutely.
We're in this together.
And that's what the reason you are here today.
Right.
Thank you so much
you.
for taking the time and talking to the viewers and letting us know where you stand in the midst of all that has happened.
All right, thanks for everything.
Always appreciate you. Milwaukee Mayor Tom Barrett, and of course you can stay up to date with the mayor's office and the Milwaukee Common Council by logging on to city.milwaukee.gov. When we return to Our Issues Milwaukee, we'll continue our conversation about the riot that took place in the Sherman Park neighborhood and get the thoughts of District 7 Alderman Khalif Rainey. We'll do that right after this.